Good evening. My name is Jim Kello. Welcome to New Tracks Meetup. This is where mentors can help modelers build. Really do appreciate you coming this evening. Thanks so very much. Hope you enjoy the show. I think it's going to be a very full and very exciting one tonight. My name is Jim Kello. Welcome to New Tracks Meetup. This is where mentors can help modelers build.
Yeah, you got to turn mute YouTube so it doesn't have this echo. Okay, I guess we're ready for you, Jim.
Okay. If you can, I hope you'll register at our website, newtracksmodeling.com. You'll get an email to make sure that the email that you put down is correct. And if you'll confirm that that is your email, then in the future, you'll get all of the login links for Zoom for all of our future shows. We hope that not only you will use that link and subscribe to our website, but we also hope you'll pass it along to your friends. If you think they might also enjoy our show or some of our shows, they're most welcome. And as long as we don't post it publicly, I have no problem with you sharing it with friends that you think might benefit from our shows. We have two new webmasters now, Jamie Bothwell and Ken Miyamura, and I can't thank them enough for their help. John, as you know, has retired again, and he says he's going to still be around if we need him, but very, very rarely. So we're really looking forward to Jamie and Ken carrying on the great work that John did on the website, and hopefully it'll even get better in the future. And we really do appreciate both of them volunteering some of their time to help us. But we also need more volunteers. We could use more volunteers, particularly now in the marketing part for our show, and particularly in the digital marketing aspect of it. So it won't take a tremendous amount of your time or effort, but we really need some help because one or two people just cannot do it all. And we really do need some help in the digital marketing for these shows. So if you're interested, if you think you can give a little bit of yourself to help us, please send me an email and let me know. My email is jimkellow1, JIMKELLOW 1, numeric 1, @gmail.com. And I look forward to hearing from you because we really do need some marketing help here. Our next My Bill is coming up this Saturday, June the 26th. And I'm really hoping that we'll have a good turnout with a lot of modelers showing what they do, what they've been working on and so forth. And I'd like to turn this over to Jeremy Wyatt right now, who's going to be moderating the My Bill in lieu of Chris Course, who's away for the summer. And Jeremy has been kind enough to take over the My Bill for him. So Jeremy, welcome. Jeremy is not here. Okay. Then I'd like to go to Greg Cassidy. Greg is going to be doing a build along for us. He's going to be doing one of Jeff Grove's Carolina Craftsman Kits. And Greg, I really do appreciate what you're doing, but I also really, really am impressed with what Jeff is doing. Jeff is giving about a 30% discount on the price of the kit. And Greg, I'll turn it over to you to talk about it a little bit.
All right, thank you, Jim. I will show a couple pictures of it. This is Brittner's Garage, which is one of Carolina Craftsman Kit's zip kits. And on August 11th, we'll be starting to build along with this. It will go for 4 weeks so far as planned. Now, the manufacturer's suggested retail price on this kit is $62, but he's offering it for $44 until August 9th. And anyone who wants to get one, you don't have to fill out any special form or show your new tracks ID card. That's just what the discount is on the website, so you can just order it straight from there. Since this is one of his zip kits, they don't come with instructions. So I'm going to encourage that you follow the build along as we go through this project. And this is another angle of it. It's just a little brick gas station, a Mansford roof, and it will be a simple kit to put together. There's not a lot to it, but there will be some challenging building parts to it.
I'm sorry, Greg, what scales did you say are available?
In HO, Jeff Grove only, the Carolina Craftsman Kit only sells in HO right now. They moved their O division over to Kirshner kits. And that's it.
Well, thanks so much, Greg. I appreciate it. Now I'd like to go to Paul Thompson for the quick tips for this evening. Paul, welcome.
Great, thank you, Jim. And let's see if I can remember how to do this at this point. There we go. Okay, I hope you're all seeing this on the screen.
I am.
What looks to be basically a leak on that tank, on that truck. This is an HO scale. And I have to give a big shout out here to Rick Hunter, because doing his bridge building, I've come up with this ridiculous idea, and this is a little off the wall. So, as you can see, this truck also has an oil leak, or possibly a rad leak. So you're wondering, how am I doing this? I'm doing it with Titebond 2 and a plastic dish. Because when I was putting all this stuff together, as you can see, the glue I was dabbing for the bridge in the plastic dish, and lo and behold, I let it dry. And then I noticed I was coming up with things like this. Well, it was just a big puddle, but I thought, this has possibilities. And I did some playing around with it, moving it around before it dried completely. And lo and behold, I sort of stuck a blank barrel over one of the pieces, and I thought, this has possibilities. So, as you can see, another shot of things sort of coming together in my mind. And here we have, if you can picture this, if you want a scene with an oil spill or a drum out, voila. So, here's another picture of the truck with an oil spill in the back. You can hardly see it. It's a yellow truck and yellow oil, but hey, what do you do? Here's another truck with a leak. So as you can see, I got a little creative. Here again, we have the rad leak or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, I guess my tip for the night is, don't always sell short things that just happen. Think outside the box a little bit. And here you have a perfect example of how you can build in a super detail. I mean, who'd have thought old trucks leak oil, or things have breakdowns, and here's a way to do it. And my other thought was, okay, Titebond comes out in this sort of yellowish color, which is perfect for oil. But if you used another glue, such as the one that I used before, like Weld Bond, it dries clear. Now you've got a water-based kind of thing. And the only trick to all of this is to put it in a plastic dish top. I basically used a lid from a plastic jar, and that allows it to be pushed out later on, and you can use it and do whatever with it. And your imagination is the rule. And that's my tip for the night, guys. Thank you.
That's pretty creative, Paul. Thank you so very much. That's a nice
Hey,
idea.
Paul.
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
I wonder if you like painted the back side of it, if you get a different tonal quality.
If you did which?
Painted the underside of the glue spot, if you'd get a different, like maybe like dirty oil or something like this.
Oh, definitely. I mean, this is something that just happened to me, and I just kind of got creative with it. And I mean, that's one of the beauties of doing modeling. You discover something that looks like an effect. And if you were to park this in a garage or a parking lot with a leak like this, it's the small things that I feel make people can look at, they can look at your models and they say, wait a minute, look at that. And all of a sudden that little bit of realism jumps out at them and it tricks their mind into thinking, hey, you've done pretty good here.
Yep.
That's my theory anyway.
Yeah, works.
I agree with you 100%, Paul. That's exactly what modeling's all about. Thanks again. I really appreciate you doing this for us.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
I've gotten a bunch of comments. We sent out an email through our website saying if you have some comments, we'd like to hear them, and we've got a bunch of comments. And I really appreciate all of them. And I've answered all of them that I've received so far. One I want to talk about just a minute. I got a comment that one of the viewers would like to see us do a build along of an Intermountain kit that is super detailed. And I'm willing to do that if I have a modeler who is interested in super detailing an Intermountain kit. Now, I've sent an email to Intermountain this afternoon asking them if they're interested in what kit that they would recommend. But I do not have a modeler to do the build along on the show. So if you're interested in that, please send me an email and let me know of your interest. And I'll get back in touch with you. Okay, now I'd like to go to Martin Breckbiel MMR for his scratch building a car. Martin, welcome.
Good evening, Jim. Let's see if we can get this to work. Whoa, look at that. Magic.
You're really getting to be a professional here, Martin.
Yeah, don't let anyone know. It's a dirty, dark secret that I want to keep under a stone somewhere. So scratch building cars, and I don't know how many I've done, so I put a very large number up there for a reference point, which everybody obviously knows is Avogadro's number. And we'll get into that some other day.
What do you do, Jim? What do you do, Martin, to control the moles?
Weasels,
Okay.
followed by dachshunds. Yeah. So this is not so much, this is partially scratch building. It's more salvage projects. I showed one of these a couple of weeks ago where I did a pair of reefers. It turns out I've done several pairs of reefers from leftover parts, leftover uncompleted projects, etc. So I'm going to go through two pairs of those tonight, I think. I'll start with this. This is what I started with on this project. I had two of these. I'm not so sure what they originated from. They're either Athearn, All Nation, fill in the blank. I don't know whose they were. I do like the nice piece of plywood that's sandwiched in the middle to support the milled roof section, which I'm not so sure really needed that support, but be that as it may, I left it there because it's too much trouble to take back out. 20 years from now, someone will hear it rattling around inside probably. The ends look nice and clean and sharp. Somebody did a nice job. The roof has nice scribing on it. So the basic box is ready to go. It's just that somebody didn't finish it. And you can find stuff like this at train shows all the time. It's usually underneath the table for a small fee or a small price tag on it because they probably think it's not sellable. But this is where I have more fun because it's a blank slate effectively for me to finish. So quick and easy. We built a couple of doors each side, some scribe siding walls, start putting in some underbody. You can see this is one of those interesting points where I failed to put I couldn't put in, put in the train line. So I had to actually notch it, drop the train line in and patch it over, put the needle beams in, bolsters in, that holds everything in place. And we're going to go fast forward a bit on these cars because I have two pair to do. So we just throw all the detail parts on, ladders. Those are laser cut ladders. I've forgotten whose they are, but they're laser cut ladders. You put them together, they're rather nice. The usual parts. These are All Nation reefer parts. I actually had several packs of them laying around. So what a good time to use them. These are really nice styrene pieces. Some of the last ones of those I have. These reefer hatches. So I have an open pair and a closed pair. We have just basic strip wood for roof walk. Let's see if we got a picture from the end. Well, no, we don't have a picture from the end. But there's an underbody in here with a full K-brake system and a queen post and the truss rods and the brake wheel on the end and all the good parts, which you've seen too many times for the last 3 months. So we do fast forward to the very end on this car. I have actually built 2 of these. I think this is number 6. I think the other one's number 8. And what's really interesting about these cars, I liked about these cars more than anything, were the Clover House dry transfers. I don't know, maybe sometime I should just do a segment on how to apply drag transfers, though I'm not entirely sure I'm really qualified. But this is let's see, we've got white, we've got black, we've got yellow, and we've got a little bit of red. So this is actually 4 different layers of dry transfers that you apply, and you seal each layer before applying the next layer. They're pretty easy to do. They pretty much align where you think they're going to align. You just look at the template that comes with the set from Clover House and apply it to the car and use your burnishing tool. And if you want, you can actually go back and push these down into the scribe siding. I do that sometimes, not always. There's the other side of number 6. There's number 8. And the other side of number 8. And I've forgotten what color this paint is. It was a bottle of Floquil with some sort of a blue-green. And if I remember correctly, it was a bottle of Floquil blue-green, something or other, without a label on it, in fact. And I thought, what a golden opportunity to use up that bottle of paint and not be troubled with it again. Oddly enough, on these cars, I even put on a pair of, both sets, I think. Yes, Fox trucks again. Just trying to give a little different visual to when these cars go rolling by. Instead of all the arch bars and Andrews trucks, every now and then something different goes by. And you don't see Fox trucks all that often in O-scale. So the next 2. These came, as you see them to me, they were styrene, entirely styrene cars, unfinished again. You can see someone started scribing in a door here and here. Pretty well done cars. Pieces are missing. Pieces are unfinished. Came with couplers on the one, which is a bonus. And somebody, it's unusual, we have a hex Philister head mounting screw for the trucks. But if you take that out, there's a lead weight on the inside or a steel plate on the inside. So you can't take that all the way out without, well, if you take them both out, you're in trouble, because then the plate pops off and you can't get it back on. It's an odd way of doing things. Not that something I've ever seen before, but I figured it out before I loosened both set screws out of that. Roof on these, it's actually pretty decent. There's a nice gap here at each end for our hatches. And once we get our roof walk on here, you will know there are a couple pieces missing. Well, it's just styrene. You measure how thick it is, how wide it is. If you don't have it in your box of styrene, you cut it from some sheet styrene to shape and length and put it in place. It's not a big deal. The ends are pretty fair again. Nothing too heinous here. Nice to see couplers. Don't have to go buy a set of couplers to finish these 2 cars. Well, this one car. Okay, so put in a whole underbody on both of these cars, K-brake and everything. And since you can actually get into this, actually have holes in the side so I can run the train line through it and put the levers in, put the supports in to hold it. These are actually steps from Q-Car, which I pulled out of my traction parts, but they seem to be the right steps for the car at the time. These are styrene steps that I tried to use and tried to weld them to this styrene. And I think they're actually Delrin, and they didn't stay for anything. I actually ultimately replaced those with brass at the end of the day, but I don't think you'll see a picture of that here. That's one of the problems with some of these parts. Sometimes they're Delrin, and Delrin is very difficult to get really tightly bound to anything, particularly styrene. Even using CA and goo mixed together, that would hold it, be stiff, and you just brush against it and it would be brittle and they'd pop right off. So I would love to have just nice sets of stirrup steps that were in just styrene instead of Delrin, scale. Well, the standard stuff on these on the sides, we have more All Nation reefer door hardware, some nice basic grab irons. These ladders are actually nice Chooch products, which I don't think you can get anymore, unfortunately. Or if you can, you have to buy them through Walthers now, because Chooch was picked up by Walthers. And you can see these are nice little steps. They actually have a little bit of a sprue in here, so they actually get mounted into the styrene. You drill a hole and drop them in, and they're actually pretty secure. Okay, so on to the end. Well, this end's boring. It only has a ladder on it. This end's more interesting. We have our brake wheel platform with the cast-in ratchet and pawl support bracket down to the stirrup down here, all the grab irons, and I've added nut bolt and washers above all of them to give them the semblance of a nice expensive brass casting as opposed to just a nice piece of wire and some nut bolt and washer castings. And these are my castings for the roof hatches from the reefer car. I actually have some molds for these, and so I've probably cast up 10 or 20 sets of them, thinking someday I'll probably use them. One of those things about when you're doing resin casting is you might as well just pour it all now and get it used up, because it's going to go bad sitting in a bottle. So bring out every mold you've got and make lots of parts. You'll use them someday. Or actually you could share them with some friends or sell them off. And there's another view for the same thing. You can see a better view of how those sit on there. They're actually supported underneath here with another piece of styrene to hold that in place. So it bridges over. And these are the roof walk castings are from Berkshire Valley, which unfortunately are no longer available. So you have to make do with whatever you can get there. Grantline makes nice roof walk supports in at least 2 different versions. And back to more dry transfers. So brine tank refrigerators from the Eastern Refrigerator Dispatch. So this is number 504, both sides of it. And just a can of paint, spray paint. Top is just a can of black paint. There's black on the bottom. Just take it outside and carefully spray without getting all over everything. Piece of cardboard blocking it off from the sides works well. And here's number, let's see, that was 504. Here's number 505. Another brine tank refrigerator, Eastern Refrigerator Dispatch. Nice little cow here. I actually don't have those cars anymore. I sold them off back in April. So that's the end of this segment until next week. And next week, I have one last pair of scratch build cars. And it's a pair I've been working on for about 3, 4, 5 months on and off. And I finally finished them. So Bill Davis will recognize these in some capacity by the time we get done, because I built them based upon 3 photos he sent me of his version of the car. So until next week, I'll let you hanging around thinking about what that might actually be. And I'm hoping Bill won't share the secret. Nothing fancy about them, though, I'll fully confess. Okay, so any questions? Now's the time to do it.
Yeah, Martin, Greg, I noticed in the styrene car, you also had some polling pockets on it. I didn't notice was that part of the original styrene, or did you add those as well?
Oh, I probably added those. I can go up the styrene ones. Let's see. Okay, let's go back. There they are. Those are old Berkshire Valley ones. That was the last 8 of those I had. And they don't make their freight car parts anymore. They've totally specialized in structure and layout scenery details all the freight car castings are no longer available. I think I bought them out of them when they changed hands.
Well, they've gone to a good cause.
Well, now that I'm out of them, so I just ordered more polling pocket castings from Wiseman about 3 hours ago. So those are the nice big brass oval ones. So they wouldn't have worked on this car, unfortunately.
Martin, you make it look so easy. I really do appreciate you doing these because, you know, some people think scratch building is just impossible and you make it look so easy. Thanks so much for doing this.
Oh, no problem at all, Jim. We'll see you next week with the last of that. And then just because foreshadowing, July, then I'll start on This Old Kit.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Martin.
There you go.
Now I'd like to turn
Well,
to,
well, Martin, I'd love to know what this car you're going to do is next.
Who was that?
Bill Davis.
Oh, you know what it is.
so now I'd like to turn to Bill Davis and let him talk about his build along of the LaBelle kit. And I really do need to say how much I appreciate LaBelle for offering the 25% discount that they offered to all the modelers during this build along. So Bill, I'll turn it over to you, sir. Thank you.
Mute myself. Share screen. There we go. That's the first full screen here, which I never can find. That's not it. Oh, where is it? Where's the full screen thing? Oh, here it is. There we go. Okay. All right. So we're getting into the fun and game parts of building one of these kits, and that's making the roof. That's pretty challenging, but I think I found an easy way to do it. So we'll get into it. But before we do that, let's finish up the end work here. So on the ends, there's a piece that is round shaped that goes in the end of the car, but you've got to cut the corners of it off. So you can see where I lined the roof up there, and I lined the roof up here, and then I drew a line across here to the shape I wanted this to be. I cut those pieces off with, well, let's get some listening. So anyway, this is what it looks like when it's finished. This is the rounded piece that starts off here. And then I shaped it this way. So it's like a double rounded on it, but they do give it to you the first round already completed. So this is a nice thing. And then I added these pieces, which is simply just cutting a wooden block that they provide for you to the right height and stuff. The bottom piece here is also shaped, but I added some nut bolt washer castings, which will eventually have grab irons added to them. So that pretty much wraps up the end of it. I need to add a doorknob over here. I have some excursion pins I can use for that. So that pretty much wraps up the end. Now it gets to the fun part here.
He's talking about.
These are the parts you're going to need to do that. I did most of the work with a single edge razor blade. This is the sandpaper I used to sand it. This is 150 grit. This is 320 grit, and this is 400 grit. This is a file I use where I make a notch in it, and of course, an X-Acto knife is always handy. So those are the tools you'll basically need. Pretty much everybody's got these single edge razor blades. I use those a lot. I actually use those more than I use an X-Acto knife. You can get them at Walmart for a couple bucks for 2 packs of them, and they're pretty handy. So this is what your end looks like when you get into the kit. And I marked these 2 marks are where I cut this edge piece back to make room for making the curves on the end. So the first thing you would do is take your knife or your razor blade and cut this back to that point there. I made this cut first and then cut this one off, and it ends up looking like that. And you can see that you cut it back all the way to the end of the solid part of the roof. This open part here is for the clear story. And this is looking from the side, and this is looking from the end. You can see this is cut out thing. One of the nice things about this more modern LaBelle kit is he has laser cut pieces to shape this rounded end piece here. In the old days, you had to carve it yourself. Not this part here, but the extension here of the roof. is a piece that is already pre-shaped, which is pretty nice. Now then, what I did is I took my razor blade and I carefully chiseled off this area here. You notice it's kind of on a 45-degree angle, but take very little out at a time until you get kind of a semi-round shape here. And then afterwards, you take your sandpaper, starting with the 150, and you start smoothing it down till it looks like that on each side. And that gives you your lower part of your roof section there. The clear story part we'll get to in a second here. Any questions so far? Okay, so this is a side view of it, and you can see that you've got that shape where it's coming down and coming over at the same time, and you've got to kind of round this off when you're doing it. You just don't come and just shove it off here. That's, you notice when I cut the pieces off here, that was kind of like that, and then you just kind of take and sand it down till you get the right curvature and shape that you want. And this part here is the tricky part here, and there's a lot to cut out here. So the first thing I did was, and I should have taken a picture of that, but I didn't. But I took my razor blade. First, I took this side piece here and got my this little jig that they give you, and I got the shape there, and I took the little side piece to make sure that it fits in properly. And then I cut a notch on each side here because that extension piece comes down and goes all the way to the edge of the roof here. And then I took my razor blade and I just chiseled away until I got the shape I wanted. And you just keep taking little chunks out. I got a little carried away right here, but fortunately I hadn't gotten too deep on the rough cut off here. So that's going to work out okay. Then I glued those side pieces I told you about that were laser cut on each side. And then I just started with the sandpaper. I started with 150 and I started sanding until I got to what I liked there. And then I took the 320 and started smoothing that down because around 50 is a little rough. And then I got to the 400 and smoothed it down even further. However, it doesn't hurt to do a little patchwork on it. A lot of guys use Squadrons patch, but I took a shine years ago to Bondo spot putty. And I think it works great for doing this kind of stuff. And so that's what that is. That red stuff is Bondo spot putty. And I did it top and I did it bottom because I wanted to fill in where I cut those grooves out. And this piece that came down here that I showed in this piece here, I wanted to make sure there was no gaps or anything there. And so after that, I sanded all that with 320 and 400 until I got it looking like that. And it looks ugly, but it's nice and smooth. And you can see where it's this shape piece comes in. There's no gaps showing or anything. And this is what you should end up at this point with the car. So the roof should be shaped on each end. The car sides we took care of, the ends we took care of already. Next time out here, we'll finish the roof. There's details to be added to the roof. There's tar paper to be added to the roof. So there's a lot of things left to do in this roof, which we'll finish up next week. Any question, guys?
No, Bill, I think you did a great job at showing how to achieve a lot of that hand work that you have to put into it. Really well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And showing how you use the putty filler, I think, was a good, nice touch. Thanks so much, Bill.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys.
Next,
Yeah, Martin had a thing in the chat saying about a foreign hand.
A what?
A foreign hand.
A foreign hand.
Foreign hand.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a little hand tool. It's a rough coarse. It's a coarse medium.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
It looks
I
like
actually-
this.
Yeah, I actually have what you're talking about there, but I found that just taking that razor blade and it didn't take me long to do it either, but just taking that razor blade and just chiseling away a little at a time, I didn't get.
Well, with the LaBelle kit, with the LaBelle kit, it'll work well because that wood's fairly soft.
Right, right.
Get into some of the older other O scale or I guess other scale roof milled roofing materials. Some of them are poplar,
Right.
and if you want to spend the next couple of years of your life with a razor blade, you're welcome to it.
No, I use a rasp or something like this to get that off there. And that was, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, it's just it's a coarse file and a rasp.
Yeah,
On
exactly.
It has a flat and a curved side.
Yep.
So it actually is very versatile for a lot of things, and they're relatively cheap.
Mhm.
So it's a nice little hand tool to have in your shop for all kinds of purposes. Oh
Well,
yeah.
The other thing I have to admit to here also is I happen to be a retired carpenter and cabinet maker, so I have a lot of toys
Yeah.
like that.
Well, you would know what a four in hand is then.
Yep.
You know, and I was only moderately kidding about the belt sander. I have used the belt sander many times for
Mhm.
a roof, but I don't recommend it if it's your first time.
Right. You know, I have a little mini sander and I thought about using it, but I thought, you know, most guys might not have a mini sander. So I thought, well, how can I do this that anybody can do it? And that's why I came up with the razor blade and all that to do it. And you're right. LaBelle wood is a lot softer than some of these other kits have. You know?
It is.
Even basswood can be a little tough to carve.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of basswood or quality of it where he's getting it from, but it's very amenable to shaping with very basic tools, which is actually good for everybody.
Right, right. And you know, the interesting thing is, you know, this looks like it's very difficult when you first look at the kit. Go, oh my gosh, what I gotta do to this thing, but it's really not that hard to do at all.
It is one of the more off-putting parts of the kit.
Yes, it is. Yes, we're past probably the hardest part of the whole thing right now. Is getting that roof carved to that shape, but it's still not that much of a challenge.
Yeah, and
That's what impressed me, Bill, about the way you handled it, because you made it look like anybody can do it, and it's not that big a deal. And I really appreciate you taking the time to figure that out, because that I think was important.
Yep.
Thanks, Jim.
Good stuff, Bill.
Thank you.
Quick question. Can you use the ultimation sander on it?
I don't have an ultimation sander, but that's a good question. I would think you'd be able to, since it's a hand-operated sander, you can control the speed and everything else on it. You probably could. The problem is you've got to be able to move it around on the sander, you know, which is much easier when it's just laying there flat and you're just chiseling away at it.
Well, thanks so much, Bill. I really do appreciate it. You did a great job tonight.
Thank you, Jim.
So now I'd like to turn to Jamie Bothwell, who again is going to talk to us about the underbody detail of passenger cars. Jamie, welcome.
Good evening. Okay, so let me just share my screen here. Wait a minute. Sorry, wrong button. There we go. And whoops, no, I don't want to do that. Shoot. All right, where's the slideshow thing? There it is. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about water in and water out. So there's a blank slide that I just added. You have two things going on here. The main one is the air pressure water system, which is often abbreviated the APWS. And that's the water tank that you see under the car. And then, of course, there's wastewater, and those are primarily chutes. Again, obviously, the wastewater comes from a sink or a toilet. If you want to detail the inside of the car, that's technically not the underframe, so that's not my area of expertise. So, all right, so you're looking at Overdale here. Overdale is in the Railway Museum of Greater Cincinnati. It's in Covington, Kentucky. And you see there's a battery box and here's an air tank, but the big part of the underframe that you see right here is the APWS tank. Now I'm going to show you a little picture later. Really what you're looking at is not the APWS tank, but the cover over the APWS tank. And so what there is there's a stainless steel tank inside that cover. Now, what I would tell you is if you ever come across a preserved car somewhere, of all the systems I've discussed, it's very most likely that the water system is going to be original, because essentially it was a stainless steel tank. They haven't really come up with a better way to store water than stainless steel tanks. So those are often just left as is. Even on tourist railroad type cars, are still sort of operational. Okay. This one is, I believe, Overdale, but I'm not. No, it was, I don't know. Anyway, it's another car from, Jobsburg, something like that. Anyway, again, you see, they've removed some parts, but one of the things they've left is the APWS tank. Okay. Here's Mount Baxter, also from the museum in Covington. Now you'll see, if I could move that up just a little bit, I probably should have made the slide a little smaller. I wasn't counting on this control bar at the bottom. I don't know, maybe you guys can see it, but you can see that the, you can kind of notice that the metal covering of the tank is beginning to peel away. So there's the, there's the proof in the pudding, so to speak, that that's really not the tank itself, but just a cover over the tank. You can kind of notice like a little thin strap in there where they probably joined two pieces of metal. This gadget over here is kind of like the flush handle. And I'll show you some more end tank views in just a minute. Okay, so here's the pro detail level. If you really want to make your car stand out, you can add these little metal handles to the ends of your tank. This gadget, I believe, covers something to do with the heater. I'm not entirely sure.
On your head.
Okay. All right. Here is the inside of the tank. If you'll see, this is a regulator from last week we talked about. This is the regulator that's going to put steam into the water tank, or some of the water tank, in order to give hot water to the passengers. So here's your regulator from last week. This is the internal heating part of the tank. That's probably a big pile of asbestos. I didn't investigate it too carefully because, of course, it's not good stuff. Anyway, so here is our S-scale, one of our S-scale versions. We have two. Both of them are not completely without their problems. This one has a nice tank handle detail, but that's got, you didn't notice so many rivets on that strap in the middle, or maybe so prominent of rivets on the end. Again, depending on the car you're looking at, some of these end rivets, let's see if we go back to that one, you can see that has sort of two rows of smaller rivets, but I have seen some that I didn't necessarily notice any rivets on at all. Certainly this middle band often is rivet free, shall we say, at least not that prominent. Okay, so anyway, that's the BTS part in S-scale. If you're not an S-scaler, maybe the HO guys, you get one of these on your car already. I consider this to be one of the most important details on a heavyweight Pullman car, because virtually every heavyweight Pullman car had this. All right, and a lot of also, like a coach or a diner would have something, if not identical, something certainly similar. Okay, here's the pre-size version of this. Again, take your pick. You can see they've got the little end blob there, that, so on and so forth. Okay, this is Tower View. It's at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. Let me just back up a minute. You can see that these tanks were all mounted at the edge of the car. In the heavyweight era, the water tank was mounted off to the edge of the car. It was on one side or the other. Okay. When we move to the lightweight era, you go, oh, where's the water tank? It's actually in here, this underneath. It's mounted on the center sill of the car. Okay. So the lightweight cars, they're mounted on the center sill, or it's possible that it's mounted very often on the lightweight era. They had two water tanks, and what they would do is either mount the two of them side by side, so one on either side of the center sill, again with a cover, or one of them end to end. All right, and then these tanks vary in length. I've seen them from anywhere from, say, around 10 or 12 feet all the way up to about 20 feet. There's a sleeper in it's a Northern Pacific sleeper in the Illinois Railway Museum that has an absolutely enormous APWS tank. I measured it, but I forget what it measured out to. I'd have to look that up. Okay, so here is our pre-size. BTS doesn't have a lightweight water tank. This one would cover sort of the skinny 2-in-a-row tank. These two gadgets on the side would be fillers. So that, there's a pipe that comes out to the side of the car, so you don't have to crawl under the middle of the car to fill up the tank. And then they would stick out to either side, kind of like wings. Okay, the next one we've got, this is a car on the Morristown and Erie. Again, you can, this right here is your water tank. You can kind of make out that it is a little bit shorter, but a little bit wider. So this is sort of your wider version. Again, this would sit sort of on the center sill, and there's probably a tank on either side of the center sill that's holding the water. This would be our S-scale version of that. I would tell you, if anything, it might be a little too long. Maybe you buy this and chop it off in the middle or something. I don't know. You know, cut a couple of these. You buy one and use it for two. I don't know. This is your filler again. So you would put that on as sort of like a little wing that sticks out to either side, and that's where the crew would fill the water tank back up. Okay. Outlet water. Okay, I searched long and hard for a photograph, and here was Tower View again, and there it is right there. This guy right here is your toilet chute. Okay. Now, you know, this is one of these things where I put this program together. I didn't really ever looked at toilet chutes before in all that much detail. But I thought, oh, I wonder, you know, does it have one for every toilet in the car? Or, you know, do they gang up a couple of them and flush out? I know, you know, I'm not that old that I've ridden, or I'm that old, I guess, that I've ridden in cars where they said, you know, don't flush while the train's in the station, and you open the toilet and you can look down and watch the track going by. So you would think they would have a chute kind of under every toilet if that's the case. So most cars had a general toilet on the end for sort of everybody to use. And then if the car had a room, some kind of private room, it would have its own separate toilet in there. So like if you had a 12-in-1 Pullman, it would have one, you know, sort of large restroom area that might have a couple hoppers in it for the men's toilet, one for the women's toilet. And then the drawing room, those would be the section passengers. And then the drawing room would have its own separate toilet. So you ought to have at least 3, maybe 4 chutes under there. But again, I'll have to take account for that. So that's it for tonight. Water's pretty simple. So as I said, if you, you know, if you find a car these days, very often the water system on it is going to be original because it's just a stainless steel tank and it's pressurized. Oh, the other thing I probably should have mentioned is somewhere near the water tank, there's going to be some sort of air tank to pressurize the water to lift it up into the faucets and the toilet, right? So air pressure water system, it's got to have an air tank for the pressure. Okay. So again, you know, if you look at, oh, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. Let's see, play from start. See, if you look at this tank right here, there's an air tank. That's probably the air tank for the water right there. Fairly small one. Let's see. That's about all I got going. For this one, I don't know. That could be a brake cylinder, maybe a brake air tank for the brakes, but somewhere in there, there's an air tank for the water. So I don't know. Let's see. This one that's not a great photograph. So I'm plagued by the idea that, you know, I have pictures of all this stuff, but some of them are actually like black and white photographs, and I have to scan them, and I'm trying to go through and find things that I've got just pictures of in digital form already. So anyway, that's it for tonight. Next week, one of my favorite subjects, air conditioning. Now, obviously, air conditioning doesn't go back to the wood car era. The first air conditioning applications were in the mid to early 30s, early to mid 30s, and so that was when cars really started taking on air conditioning, and so we'll deal with that. So air conditioning, I'll be a little bit more rushed on because there's a whole bunch of different stuff to talk about with air conditioning. But that's what I got for tonight. Any questions?
Hey, Jamie, a question before you jump. Were the size of the tanks defined when they bought the cars based on the routes they were going to be on? So in other words, if a car was going to be on the Zephyr route for 3 days, did they buy those with larger cars than cars that were on shorter 1-day routes? Or is it kind of more by railroad?
That's a good question, and I really can't provide an answer because, you know, again, it requires you to get under a bunch of cars that, you know, like I would have to, you know, I crawl under every passenger car I find, but, you know, I would have to find a couple from different railroads to see if they're sort of standardized or whatever. Right. And, you know, what's preserved these days is, of course, a little bit of a mishmash. I would suggest that it's probably car type and railroad, right? So it's probably a combination. Like if you had a car like say a diner that's going to need a little more water, if it's only going say New York to Chicago, they can probably get away with a little less water than if it's going, across the country, the west from Chicago to Seattle or something like that. But they also tended to, they did fill these up en route. It was one of the, they didn't, it wasn't like if they ran out of water, they'd be, oh, well, too bad you can't have a drink. They could fill up the water en route. So that was done. So again, I would say probably based on, the route, the car type and the railroad, whatever they felt they needed to get. So.
On the air tank, is that just pre-charged or is there a compressor with that?
The cars did, it was charged by the locomotive.
Okay.
It's part of the air system of the car, like the brakes and everything, it's just tied in with the brakes. So I don't think the car itself wouldn't necessarily have an air compressor. It would have a compressor associated with the air conditioner possibly, which we'll talk about next week.
Right.
The air pressure for this would come sort of like from the brake line, as far as I know.
And just be a line tapped off the air line through the car just over to the tank, and it just as it drains it out, it fills it up.
Yeah, I don't know of any cars that had a specific. I've never come across an air compressor under a car, other than the ones that are attached to the it's not really an air compressor. It's for the air conditioner. It has a.
And in a wooden car era, in wooden car era, would that be the same as the heavyweight, basically?
Yeah, they wooden cars often. I've seen a lot of wooden cars that had it's almost like a wood wrapped tank, and those are often paired. And I think one of those is gas for the lighting, at least. One might be water and one might be gas. Again, as far as the dates on this go, I would imagine that internal water probably came about around the air brake time, because it would have given them compressed air to fill up to pump the water up into the car.
Right.
So
wooden cars built, say, after 1900 or 1910 or something like this, they would have their own. They would be the same as the heavyweight cars.
Yeah, very very similar. They might be. The tank itself might be different shaped, but it would still function the same way. Like I said, I have noticed a lot of these wood, like a wooden wrap tank. Although like I said, I know some of those are for gas. I actually am supposed to go to the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania on Friday, and one of my plans is to take a quick look at some of the wooden cars they have and see what I've been missing all these years. So I'll give you a quick update next week. Maybe if people are interested in this, maybe I'll extend a little bit and I could sort of do a special segment on wood cars. When I started this project, I wasn't necessarily thinking I was going to do wood cars, but when Bill was building that LaBelle kit, I thought, well, maybe I better tell people about some of the stuff they can put under the car they're building. So then I started scrambling around for wood car information. So, but
I've got another project I'm working on. It's actually a passenger car that was used as caboose on short lines, and it was a wooden car even up to the end into the 60s.
Okay.
Yeah, so they hung around for a long time on some of on the little railroads and short lines. And stuff
oh
like
yeah,
this.
yeah, sure. But as far as like I said, just for me, I hadn't really planned on doing wood cars, but I figured I better tell people about what they should put under their LaBelle baggage car, because they're building LaBelle baggage cars.
Tell me.
Okay, well, I will. Like I said, I will. I'm going to do some research on wood cars, hopefully on Friday, and see what else I can find.
All right, great.
Jamie, thanks so very much. Really do appreciate this, and I think you're really bringing a lot of great information to passenger car modelers. So thanks so much for doing this.
Okay, next week, air conditioning, one of my favorite subjects. So.
Gotcha. Next, I'd like to turn to Earl Hackett before we go to our featured modeler tonight. Earl is dealing with our 3D printing situation. So Earl, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Earl,
Earl.
you're muted.
I'm not hearing anything. I'm still not hearing anything, Earl.
You should be hearing me now.
Yes.
Oh, got me? Ah, good. Okay, let's start this silly thing over again. There we go. Okay, we spent a lot of time talking about computers and drafting and all that. Today, we're actually going to print the thing. We're going to put it in a printer and we're going to print it. The first thing you do, though, is you have to add what they call supports to the model. They're not really supports. They're more of an attachment, which attaches the model to the build plate, which slowly creeps up out of the solution, dragging the model with it. So these things are actually in tension, not in compression. I'll do it this way. Now, why is this thing doing this to me? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, personally, I think the hardest thing to remember about 3D printing with resin printers is that they do it upside down, which gets
Yes, they do. That is very. It gets very confusing. Come on, you silly thing. No, you know, this drives me crazy. It wants to edit the thing. It doesn't want to. I'm going to just do this. Don't save. I'm going to start this thing over again because it just drives me crazy. Yeah, okay. Yes, here we go. I'm going to have some editing to do on this one too. Okay, so. Why won't this thing play?
Hey, Earl, while you're trying to figure that out, why don't we go to
Yeah.
our featured modeler?
Yeah,
And then I
do
can
that.
come.
Do that. This PowerPoint's driving me crazy.
Yeah, so let me do that. And
Go ahead.
I'll come back to you later.
That's fine.
Now I'd like to introduce our featured modeler, Peter Mack. Peter is really a professional model maker. He's with the Association of Professional Model Makers, and he's helped me on one presentation that we made to a local school system here in Florida. And Peter, welcome back. I really do appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Listen, I was on your Zoom meeting that your association had this afternoon, talking about your program that you sponsor once a year for the kids in the hobby, in the world that make models and go in your contest. Would you like to talk about the contest a little bit?
Sure. The contest is open to any student, actually internationally, that's willing to build a model and present it for judging. I think we get a lot of models from the UK, from the University of Bournemouth. Hopefully we'll have some entrants from Northeast Wisconsin Technical College. They have a wonderful model making program there, and Bemidji State University in Bemidji, Minnesota. They also have a model making program. Any of the students can offer up their model, whether it's something they've worked on in the past, something they did for a class, or for whatever reason, just for fun. And then it will be put into kind of the pot and judged by a panel of professional model makers, and we pick the top 3 can win prizes, and then there's several honorable mentions based on model execution and finish and other different categories.
I really think that's a wonderful program that you guys sponsor, because it allows the kids that may be in the hobby right now. I think personally that model railroaders can bring an awful lot of value to being a professional model railroader because of the experience and the model making that they get involved with. So I'm really interested in that aspect of the program.
I would agree. Just listening to your program just today, you're all the folks that I listen to are the amount of detail that you go to. It's quite impressive.
Well, listen, how would a person get involved to be a professional model maker? Let's say there's a lot of, the hobby is trying to attract younger people to the hobby. And I know some of the companies out there are thinking, we'd like to be able to figure out how maybe it's easier for us to attract employees to become professional model makers. And in that extent, we both have the same issue, the same problem. And I'm wondering, what can a model railroader do who really feels that, model making might be a great career, but how do I get involved in it? How would I even, know where to go or what schools to go to or what programs to take or how I should prepare myself?
Well, it's a pretty broad question. I'll kind of break it down this way. If you think about model making as not so much a career, but as a what people do, we've been building models for thousands of years. If there is a product, somebody that builds the first one is really building the prototype of that. And then usually in any modern day product, the development cycle is the initial builds, an iteration, more iterations, concerns for tooling and that type of thing. So it's actually quite common. I think the problem is not only for professionals and amateurs, that people don't realize that they're building models. Obviously you do, you're building model railroads, but that work at any company that develops a product of any sort has somebody that's doing that initial model making work. Perhaps it's an engineer, a technician. They don't call themselves model makers per se. At my company, at Steelcase, we have a whole staff of, I think right now we're 27, 28 model makers in-house, and then use a wide variety of people on the outside to do model work. I think you could do a kind of a local search for companies that do product development. If you are interested, you're gonna have to really put forth a little effort and stick your neck out and ask if you can get involved in that. It's not an advertised thing, and I think that's part of the problem. People don't know that model work is done. If you talk to industrial designers, they are really concerned about the visual aspects of whatever that new product is. Occasionally, industrial designers are very hands-on and will build their own versions of their ideas. Engineers are the same way. When you combine the three skills, model making, industrial design, and engineering, you can really move quite quickly from an idea to a very complex product that's manufacturable in a pretty short amount of time. I don't know if that answers your question exactly. It's kind of very difficult. I did a presentation this morning with some high school students about how do you get into model making. We were really more talking about model making as a career, what it is and what's involved in that. The opportunity to become a model maker is a little bit more difficult in that you need to go out and find companies that are doing product development. So if in the area you live in, there's companies that make products, and it can be anything. As long as they're continually upgrading their products and making new things, they're doing a product development cycle, and there's a need to prototype, and that's really what we do.
Is this kind of a dead end kind of a position in a company, or is there growth for model makers?
I think there's a lot of growth for model makers. I've been a model maker for 36 years. I've started off as an apprentice. I went through an apprenticeship, worked my way up to, model maker, senior model maker. I'm a principal model maker now. I have a journeyman's card from the Department of Labor. And my job now, while I don't build a lot of models, I manage a lot of model makers, and I do a lot of consulting about how to bring value to products through three-dimensional visualization, how people can sell an idea using a model, not having to have a full-blown production part ready to go. I think that there's a lot of things that model making can do. I used an example this morning as that about 30 years ago, when 3D printing became a tool to use, I had a master pattern maker literally shaking a chisel in my face, telling me that the CNC machine that just came into the shop would never do what he could do. If you look at 3D printing, when that came online, I heard a lot of people saying, well, that'll be the end of model making. There'll be no need to do that. I think anybody that's ever worked with a 3D printed part knows that when it comes off the machine, it's not ready to show to anyone. There's support material that needs to be removed, build lines that need to be worked out, a lot of sanding, a lot of finish work, priming, painting, before it's ready for presentation to anyone or to display. So I think there's a very wide variety of things. The field continues to grow. There's a lot of computer work that happens now. I learned when I entered the field, I was kind of at a crossroads. At the beginning was the end of master pattern makers and the pattern maker trade, but it was the beginning of CNC work. So I got the kind of the best of both worlds. That the students that I instruct now, or the apprentices that work for me now, come to me with a huge computer background. They think in different terms than I do. I learned how to draft at a drafting board where I'm just judging for a lot of the audience that I see here. They probably learned how to draft also. And CAD is a completely different thing. I work with CAD people that they only ever learn to design something on a computer screen. And if you ask them to actually physically draw it, they can't. And I think it's not a bad thing. It's just something that it shows the growth of the skills. I don't know what the next thing will be. I'm sure there's going to be a next thing. So we'll continue to learn. and move forward that way.
You mentioned the Department of Labor journeyman card that you have. What is that all about? I mean, does the Department of, is that kind of like a union card?
At one time, it was very prevalent in union shops, although you don't have to be in a union to be a journeyman. So what that is the company that you work for that sponsors the program in their building says, we will train people over a very specific range of time. For a model maker, it's 8,000 hours of training, which is 4 years. And you do very specific, you know, so many hours of milling, so many hours of lathe work. In the furniture industry, so much hours of upholstery work.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've completed the hours in training under a journeyman as an apprentice, and you can prove that you can do all of those things, you're given that status of being a journeyman. I've met some people that are journeymen that are just truly amazing model makers, and other people that have kind of moved along through the program and they can do the work. But I think the important part is that you have some passion about the work that you do. It is the Department of Labor sponsors the program is really what it is.
It's kind of up to each company to develop their own training program. Is that what I'm hearing?
Definitely, yeah. So we think of, a lot of times we think of journeyman, you know, like a machinist or a woodworker or a plumber even. There's lots of skilled trades that have apprenticeship programs. And once you complete your apprenticeship, you're considered a journeyman.
Right. And so the model maker has that kind of program, but it is company specific.
It is very company specific. So every company could have a different style of model making. If you think about the breadth of model making, architectural models, or my journeyman's card actually says furniture model maker on it, because that's what Steelcase supported. I would think that if you worked for GM or Ford, the journeyman's card might say automotive model maker. I don't know that, but I'm sure that there are specific things, and it's how the company wrote the program.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's fascinating. Well, listen, what should an apprentice think that they're going to encounter when they come to work for you, say? Person is out of college, out of high school, wherever he comes from, and he says, "Hi, my name's Jim Keller. So what's my job now?"
I tell all of my apprentices that I expect them to make mistakes. Sounds crazy. I know they're going to make mistakes, and I want them to, because that's how you learn. I would never put somebody in a position to be unsafe. You know, I just like go over to that mill and start doing something. That's not fair to them. But I want people to not feel that I'm watching them like, boy, you made a mistake on that. Now that's a check mark against you. I think that's a positive thing, because when you learn how to recover from that mistake and you save your model, and every one of you, I'm sure, as doing model railroads, you've slipped with an X-Acto, you've done whatever, the glue didn't set right, the glue set too fast. You can name 100 different problems. It's how you recover from those problems that make you a good model maker. Not that you glued something together correctly. It's if it went wrong and you recovered from that, those mistakes, you learn from that, and hopefully you don't do that problem again. Sometimes you do. But I think everyone could tell a story of where they were making something, it it broke, it got caught up in the machine. There's just hundreds of different things that could go wrong. And then it's how you recover from that. So that's one of the first things I tell the apprentices, that I know they're going to make mistakes. I want them to. That's how they learn. And then don't be afraid to try something different. In model making, there's really no set rules. We're allowed to experiment. We're allowed to be creative, just as you are with your maybe a paint scheme, or I know you're trying to replicate things as they were in real life. So there's a set of rules, but how you get to that end is really up to you. And I think that's the wonderful thing about model making.
What would you like to see a person have as far as either education or experience that comes to you as an apprentice? What, you know, in the US, for example, there's just not that many programs out there. There's just not that many universities that you know, have anything at all. And the high schools have eliminated basically the shops and that kind of thing. So again, you know, the model railroaders are out there. The kind of philosophy that you just said is exactly what model railroading philosophy is all about. Everybody makes mistakes, but it's what you do to correct the error that really separates the modelers from other, you know, the skill levels are there. So, you know, given that, and a person, you know, he's a good model railroader, or he's good with whatever models he's building, and says, geez, I'd really like to do this as a career, but there's no university available to me. You know, I've got a high school diploma, but, you know, I don't have technical knowledge, for example. Maybe my school didn't have a robotic class, or, you know, or where I might gain that experience. So how do I get that experience that you need? I mean, I'm a model railroader. That's all the experience I got.
I can say I'll make one comment about making mistakes, and I think this really exemplifies it. At the very beginning of this program today, somebody was showing using wood glue to show an oil spill as a detail. I thought, it's like, what a happy accident. That's one of the wonderful things about model making, is that there are no rules. And when you see something like that, it's your attention to detail that you take something from the abstract and apply it to a very physical thing, just from your own creativity. That's an accident that's happy. That makes a wonderful detail thing that, I tell you what, I would notice that in a model. If I was looking at it, I'd say, hey, look at that, it's got an oil dripping out. That's fabulous. That's top level work there. So I think that was one thing that I noticed today, that I don't remember the man's name, but it was very interesting. And I love little accidents like that, when you find something that works and can be applied to either your project, or keep that kind of in the back of your head and use it down the road. I guess for your other question, I would say curiosity. Having a sense of curiosity would, if you were to come into my shop, in effect untrained, one of the hardest things we have finding young people is that they show up to work every day. Literally. I can't get people to come to work every day. There's always some problem that they seem to think is more important than them being there. And that I should just be okay with that, and I'm not. So I have a difficult time with that issue. But if we get past that and you come to work every day, I want you to show up with a certain amount of curiosity and a desire to learn. I would assume that the majority of you are self-taught in your hobby. Even being, I'll say amateurs, a lot of the work you could do could be very much professional. You could be paid for that that type of work for the attention to detail you do. I guess maybe I'll ask you this question, kind of work it back the other way, and maybe we can come up with a better solution. If you had built a scale freight car, I don't know enough about model railroading to really speak about it, but if you were to have built this and then you go to a show, can you sell those cars? That would make you a professional. Do you do that? I would assume.
There are people on this show right now that have done those kind of things and that are doing those kind of things today. I mean, there are very talented model railroaders.
Oh, it's obvious just looking at the clips that I just saw here. It's incredibly talented.
Yeah.
I think some people do that model making for pleasure, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I was fortunate enough to, when I did go to college. I went to college for metalworking. I have a degree in industrial technology with an emphasis on metalworking. When I was looking for employment after I graduated, I wanted to be a mold maker. Every mold shop I went to, they were like, "Why would you want to start an apprenticeship? You already have a college degree." It's like, well, I'm kind of doing it backwards, but the people that were interviewing me were going back to school for the same program I went to. They had a wife and 2 kids, and they wanted to advance in their company. I knew that going into the shop, I would have to do an apprenticeship and, drill holes for 6 months and, sweep the floor and clean coolant tanks and all of those things to learn my trade. That's what I wanted to do. I couldn't get anybody to believe me in that. A happy accident. I saw an ad for a model shop here close to where I live now. It's like, well, I can do all of those things. I applied, I got the job, and it was the best thing for me. It was a better fit for me just because of the diversity and all of the different materials, and it just fit me better than a single thing of machining metal every day. So sometimes it's just a happy accident how that comes along. But I think you can also set yourself up for that lucky break.
Let me ask you this. I know that your association has a free membership. And, it's, to me, if I was a young model railroader, I would take advantage of that. I think some of the things that people I've been able to meet in the association, and some of the Zoom calls that I've been able to attend have really been great for me. I mean, I've met some wonderful people, and I think that it could be of real value to model railroaders and possibly help them find a career in the future.
I think that's similar to what I was saying, that you have to kind of put your neck out there. You have to do a little research, set yourself up to be lucky. So if you were to go for the student membership, I don't know if there's a cost to that. I'm not positive what it is. If there is a cost to it, it's not very much. And then put yourself out there and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. But be aware, and I talk to students about this all the time. I'm on the advisory board for NWTC in Wisconsin and Bemidji in Minnesota. I go and talk to students there, and well, yeah, I really want to kind of stick around home. I'm like, well, I know for a fact that there are no model jobs in Green Bay, Wisconsin, or Bemidji, Minnesota. So you're going to have to move. You're going to have to kind of put yourself out there. And if you want to be a professional, you can choose where you want to live. I mean, the jobs are out there. They're posted on the APMM website. I think if you were to do some research for the different companies, the different model shops that are, and there's hundreds of them, send a letter, say, I'm interested in learning this. As a young person, I think that would impress me. if somebody said, I'm interested in, wrote me a letter, an email, and said, I'm interested in doing this, if I didn't have a position for them, I would ask people that I know that do. I probably work with 5 or 6 other model shops. They're constantly looking for people. The same with machine shops. They're constantly looking for people. They'll train them. They're more than willing to train them. They can't get people to walk in the door and show up every day. That's the problem.
It's kind of scary when you say it like that, being in the employer. That is really kind of scary to me, because that's just not the environment. When I was in the workforce, that was not the environment that we had.
No, it's not the way I grew up.
Peter, I was just thinking about this whole thing. I've been an employer quite a lot of my life, and I just, if somebody showed up with you with a model freight car or a model airplane or something like that, something tactile, something tangible, that'd probably make your eyes light up a little bit more too, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. I help students build their portfolios so that they can show the work they've done. I always, I mean, I love a good finished model. Those are great. The best pictures, the ones that I want to know, are what was the biggest problem with this? What was the biggest mistake? How did you solve that problem? I want to see, here's where I drilled a hole through the center of this thing and I had to fix it. That's what I want to see. Take a picture of that and then show me, and then tell me your thinking, how you fix that problem. That will sell me every single time. But yes, a finished model. We just hired a young man on contract. He brought in a bunch of slingshots that he had made, custom slingshots. And it's like, well, can we shoot one? You know, so we set up a box in the shop and got some. I'm sure if the safety people were around, they would have had a heart attack. We got some ball bearings and shot a box with a slingshot.
So you get extra points. You get extra points if it's a working model.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, at least make us laugh about it. We had a good time doing that. But yeah, I think if somebody came in with just what I'll think of as like a LaBelle car model or an airplane model, what I built when I was a kid, that we could sit there and talk about the attention to detail and the things that he did or didn't do, and how the joints were put together. And I mean, I look at that, I see it immediately. That's my job. Just as you would look at it and be, I would hope, depending on the person, you know, how critical you would be. But you would pick out the flaws in anyone's model because that's what you do. And you see those things. I like the discussion about the water tanks under the passenger cars. Just all that attention to detail, and then taking it from real life and putting it into a model is really quite interesting.
That's why we have these kind of people on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what this is all about, trying to get people as much knowledge as we possibly can.
Yeah, I think the sharing of knowledge, and that's what the Association of Professional Model Makers is all about. It's really sharing at a professional level when somebody runs into a problem, you know, sharing a solution. There's no magic way of doing it. We've seen the majority of solutions to a lot of problems. I think there's a great example, and I use this example a lot about the APMM. Somebody had a blast cabinet, a water jet cabinet that they clean the build material off of 3D printed parts. And because it's water, it usually has a windshield wiper on the window. You think of it like a sandblaster, but it's water, so it's got a windshield wiper in it. The motor had gone out on that. The manufacturer wanted $200 for the motor He put a call out on the APMM. Does anybody had this problem? What would I do? I think within 2 minutes, he had 3 suggestions. One was just go to your local auto parts place and get a windshield wiper motor for $9 and replace it. And, so within 20 minutes, he had his tool back up and at least the ability to go buy the part and fix it, but had a solution to it. And that's the type of sharing. And that's what I see you doing here. Very free with your information about technique, talents, why you would use one tool over another. All of those are very interesting, especially if you're a beginning person.
Well, we hope it helps. We really do. That's why we're doing it.
I don't see how it couldn't.
Well, Peter, I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. I really do appreciate it. I know this is a lot of time and trouble for you, but thanks so very much for being here.
It's no trouble at all. I appreciate you asking me to be here, and I'm happy to do it. I've learned a little bit just from watching the little segments up until my part. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much again. I really do appreciate you being here. All right, Earl, what about you? Are you ready to show us how to do this 3D printing?
All set.
Gotcha. Well, I'll go to you, sir.
Okay. Let's see. There we go. The last week, the last couple of weeks, we worked working with computer drawing and everything, but this week we're actually going to print the part. The one thing you have to do that still requires the computer to work on is to add supports to the model. Now, they call them supports, but they're not really supports. They're attachments. They attach the model to the build plate, and the build plate slowly pulls itself out of the soup, and the model comes along with it. And you do this with programs they call slicers. Not only does it apply the supports, but it also cuts the model into layers. And each layer is printed independently, one layer after the next on these types of printers. I have 2 slicers that I work with. One is Box. It's a fairly sophisticated slicer, but doesn't give you a whole lot of, in the free version, you don't get very many options. I think you pay $100 or so a year for their commercial unit. The other one is the Lychee slicer, which is pretty crude, but you have lots and lots of options. And I'll show you the 2 of them here. This is the screen on the Box, and you can see that there's not a whole lot of options. You can rotate it, you can move it around, you can mirror it. It comes down backwards. You have to rotate it 90 degrees to get it lined up properly. And then you get the settings. That's where you set the exposure time and the lift rate and some other settings on the machine. And you tell it to slice and it goes off and does its thing. Box is, the Lychee is a little bit more complicated. You have a lot more options here, and it goes through several stages. You start by positioning it on the build plate, and remember, this is what you're seeing here is upside down from what is going to be going on in the machine. Then you get to apply the supports, and then you finally export it. When you export it, it'll slice it up for you. When you attach the model to the build plate, the first layers of the printer are only about 2/1000 of an inch thick, and they're very weak. And when they pull from the build plate, they'll distort. So to avoid this, you typically want to put the model at an angle so that only an edge or a small surface is first printed. And this eliminates a lot of the distortion that you might see. We're going to play this thing, and oh, come on. What is this thing doing? Oh, come on. Oh, here we go. Click that. Okay. This is the peach crate. I'm loading up the peach crates here. They're a fairly small model. And it drops them down. And now what you're going to do is tell it, okay, let's lift it up. You want to lift it up a little bit so that you can get under it and cut it loose from the plate. And I like 8 millimeters is a nice number. Once you have it set up, you're ready to put on, and I'm going to just let this thing do its thing. When you have to tell it to go. Yeah, that's what I want to slice. Okay. You take a look here. You have all these various options here. I'm going to just let it do everything. So it first turns it up so it's just a little. There's just a single point is hanging down there. It lifts it off the plate. Now it's put all these supports on it. Now it's going to put optimized supports. And now it's putting in bracing. And you have more material in the supports than you have in the model. So I go back and do it. I do most of these by hand. And you can see that these are all in tension. There's no compression going on. So you're just lifting that thing straight up and they're going to pull it right out of the box and it'll be just fine. So now you export the file and they like to throw ads at you. And just going to write over the peach crate. And this is the actual slicing. These are the supports. And you're coming up. Here comes the 2x4s. Now you can see the frame being built. And boom, it's done. Now, this is a signal cabinet I'm working on. This is letting the lychee slicer go at it. And it's just awful. It leaves, when it goes at it, there'll be little dimples like this. Wherever these things get attached, there'll be a little lump that you really don't want. And there's no need to have these things out here anyway, because it's not supporting anything. This is the Chidu box, and you take a look at what it does. The place that it has to really draw is these surfaces here on the, what are the bottom, it's lifting it out. This is the surface it's trying to pull off of the release film. And so you have lots and lots of stuff here. You don't need anything to pull it. The body of the model itself is going to pull itself out of the soup. And you can see it just runs these up to here. Does a really nice job, but you have really no control over it. You sort of get what you take unless you get their professional version. So we've taken that. We're going to copy it to a thumb drive, and you're going to plug it into the printer. Now, if you take a look at this, the film that you're going to see is not the peach crates. It's actually some electromagnetic switch machines that I needed. I had the camera set up, so it's the same process though. I've edited the sections down. There's 2 ethanol rinses, 30 seconds each, and there's 3 minutes of ultrasonic cleaning, and then a UV post cure is 1 minute long. And so I just cut out the center sections of those so you don't have to sit there and watch them forever and a day. So here we go. We have, turn it on. You have a little splash screen comes up. This is my ultrasonic printer here, and these are the 2 tanks of ethanol that we'll use for cleaning it. You just tell it to print. I got to find the thing. Who was it? Print. And that was several files in there. You have to pick the right file. That's the file you want? Yeah, I think so. Okay, go ahead. And that's it. You're done. This is the most exciting part right here. Once it gets to the thing goes into the soup, you can't see it doing anything. But it goes down and it hits the bottom. And it does a little bump to get any air bubbles out of there. Bump flushes the air bubbles out. And now the plate comes on, and this is the surface that actually, they really want this to stick to that aluminum plate. So this is going to expose for about 30, 35 seconds and really make it hard, really polymerize the daylights out of it. Your normal exposures will be 3 to 4 seconds, depending on the temperature. So I actually let this thing go and it just chugs along. This is a timer over here for the ultraviolet lights. That's it. So it finally comes up, and it's going to do this all through the whole process. This is all it does. Okay, so we've got the, now you notice I'm wearing gloves now. When you're working with this stuff, these are acrylic polymers, and you don't want to get them on your skin. They're not toxic, but you can get a real nasty case of dermatitis if you become allergic to them, and you can become sensitized to the stuff. And so this is the dirty solvent. And I just use the timer on the ultrasonic to, you slosh it around for 30 seconds like this. Okay, now I like to keep my clean ethanol tank as clean as possible. So I give it a squirt of ethanol just to remove the dirty, the dirty solvent. It gets really dirty. Put that one over there. Now I give it 30 seconds of the clean ethanol tank.
What percentage ethanol is that? 70 or 90?
It's straight ethanol fuel, 100, not probably 95%.
Okay.
It's stove fuel.
Yep.
You go for marine stoves and camping stoves. It's denatured. You can't drink it. I give it a good rinse with this stuff, and then take it over. And I'll give it. It'll go into the ultrasonic cleaner for 3 minutes. And first thing we'll do is knock it off. I think I knock it off the shelf. Yeah, you're going to take the knife and we'll detach it. But ethanol, some people use isopropanol, but ethanol is a whole lot cheaper and works just as well. You get it by the gallon. And the solution in there is just 3% Dawn detergent. Dawn is a really good grease cutter. That will take it. You can say there's not much to this process. It's pretty simple. Take it over to my wash sink, just rinse it off. Give it a good shake. And I squirt it with ethanol just to make it dry faster. Otherwise, you have to wait for the water to dry before you put it in the ultraviolet light. So that just knocks any residual water off. And this is my homemade light box. It's a bunch of 405 nanometer LEDs, 2 strips of them that run around in there. And I have a little wire basket in there to put it in to so it gets exposed from all directions. And you turn it on and you can see the lights come on. Boom. Takes about a minute. And the commercial ones only have 4 or 5 of those LEDs, and it takes maybe a half hour to cure it. That thing is a real flamethrower. Now, removing the parts is, I'll be back to using the little peach crates again. I just use a sharp knife. You'll see, I just take a little Dyco knife and I set it against they just pop off. A couple of them went flying. Had to go collect them off the floor. And I think I crushed 1 or 2 of them. They're very, very delicate. Maybe remember, these things are those walls are only 0.4 of a millimeter thick. And so there they all are. That's it. And they're the finished parts on the layout
Nice.
with the peaches. I don't know what he used for peaches. I have no idea what those things are. But he said he found these things, and he says they're great peaches, and I need peach crates. So he got peach crates. So there you go. Now, next time I'm gonna, that tower you saw, I'm finishing up the painting on, and we'll talk about how you could make more complicated things with lots of bricks and clapboards and roof tiles and all that kind of stuff. And you'll see that it goes very, very, very quickly with a good CAD system. All right, that's about it.
Earl, I can't thank you enough for taking some of the mystery out of quote 3D printing, because at least I may not be able to do it, but I think at least I understand the process.
But it's, it's as you can see, actually running the printer, you push the button, you walk away, and come back in an hour or two and pop the parts off. Then the cleanup is maybe 10 minutes to clean them up, get the residual off. And with that big bucket of lights that I have there, I reclaim the ethanol. I just take the dirty ethanol, stick it in, put it in a glass container, stick it in there, turn it on for a half hour, and all the stuff polymerizes and gets coated on the sides, pour the ethanol back, and it's clean, or reasonably clean anyhow.
Huh.
So it's, you can keep the cost down to something rational by reclaiming the stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Look forward to the next one.
Okay. Take care now.
Well, folks, I think that's it for tonight. Next time, Saturday, June 26th, is going to be our My Bill with Jeremy Wyatt moderating it for us. I hope a lot of you have sent him photos so that he can recognize you and we can see what you're building. And I really hope the more the merrier for this My Bill, because I am concerned that we don't have as many people as I had hoped for participate. And I hope that we really have a crowd for this next one on June the 26th, this coming Saturday. And the special segments that we have before that, our Rick and Maureen Hunter are going to finish up their build along of their Hunterline kit. Greg Cassidy is going to tell us what new the manufacturers have in store for us. Fred Cosgrove is going to talk about trolley modeling. Dave Silvernail is going to talk about rocks and weathering. And I have a question if anybody has questions. I would like to make one other comment tonight before we go. I've had some questions, as I said earlier in the show, and I'd like to comment on a couple of them. I had one modeler say, hey, I lost the login link and so forth. Well, we know that it was sent. We know it was received. So it was either accidentally deleted or it ended up in spam. And John tells me that I need to start reminding people if you don't have the login, check your spam, because there's nothing we can do to control that. That is your provider who determines whether it's spam or not. And if you take it out of spam, then the next time it won't go into spam, as I'm told. So I encourage you to do that. The second question that I had was, can we share with people the agenda for each show prior to the show? Well, we've been doing that for some time. John posts them on our website. I think the next show is already on the website of what we're going to be covering. So if you want to know what the agenda is for each one of the shows, all you have to do is go to our website and it'll be there. So with that said, I do encourage you to go to our website, find out what our agendas are, find out what we're doing and when we're going to do it, so forth. Send me some more emails with your comments and your suggestions for improving the show. Thanks so much for coming tonight and for being here. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed the show. Happy modeling until next time. Thanks so much again for coming this evening. And Ken, that's it. Ken, thank you so much. I think you did a great job. For the first time, I think that was outstanding.